So Robin is easily one of the strongest characters in One Piece. And, I know that saying that because she is one of the, we'll call them mid-tier members of the crew, because you have the Monster Trio and then you have the Weak Trio, that probably sounds kind of weird. But it is. The Straw Hats are an incredibly strong crew who have gone toe-to-toe with Emperors of the Sea at this point. It's hard to just state how strong they really are, especially because they don't have the same markers for it, like the fact that they don't have a massive army that's with them all the time or a lot of territory, but they are. Now, that having been said, she is in possession of what should be a weak fruit. The ability to just grow more limbs with the Hana Hana no Bi should not be that strong, and yet she has taken that fruit and easily converted it into one of the strongest abilities in the series. And we can take that even farther, because we are going to give Robin the perfect second Devil Fruit. Now, mainly in the series, it's normally impossible to have a second Devil Fruit, but we have seen exceptions to this, most notably Blackbeard. But let's say for a second that you could, through whatever science or, artificial means, gain a second Devil Fruit. What one would be perfect for Robin? I know there's a lot of speculation on this, from the Habi Habi no Mi to, giving her like the Lightning Fruit from Enel, but there is, in my mind, one really perfect fruit that just complements her abilities so well because of the variety that she uses. Before we get into it, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so I can bring you more videos like this, and like the video if you liked where this idea is going, because we're going to give her the weapon fruit. I know, it's a bit unconventional. This fruit is kind of like a one-off because it's given to Baby 5, and we see it in Dressrosa. It's never really come up since, and honestly, it could have probably been utilized better, hence why we're going to give it to Robin. But I have some underlying logic for why Robin can use it better. The first of these is that Robin is one of the few members of the crew that actually uses weapons. I know, it's kind of funny, you really think about it. Most members of the Straw Hats crew don't use weapons. They use a highly specialized tool. The only person that actually uses a weapon on the crew is Zoro. Because, yes, Usopp's slings are weapons, but they're not really as good as, like, the guns that we see in the world. He uses them more for payload variety with his special stars. And then Nami has the Climb Attack, but again, that's really more closer to a power with controlling weather than it is a weapon. But Zoro is the only one who actively uses swords. And I think that that's kind of important because I guess the only other person you could count there would be Frankie. But his weapons are built into himself. This would give Robin kind of a similar facet. Now, keep in mind, we've seen Robin mostly use guns. If she's used any weapons, she's mostly used guns. But we don't really have a reason to think that she couldn't use at least knives and possibly swords as well, especially if they were a part of her. This is where this gets broken, because all she has to do is spawn even her regular arms, and keep in mind post-time skip she can make just a ton of those, and she could turn them into guns, knives, swords, bombs, any other numerous amount of weapons, heck, even a variety. She could make 5 arms on somebody, turn one into a mace, a sword, a knife, a gun, and a bomb, and have them all used at once. That's incredibly potent, because one of the real limitations of this power is that you have to turn your own body into it. And we know that her arms count as her own body, thereby negating the weakness. Let's be honest, the idea of just generating weapons, that's kind of cool. Turning into one, though, like if it's a part of, like, you turn your arm into a sword with the blade fruit, that's potent. Becoming a sword from the waist up looks ridiculous. And because Robin doesn't have to do that, or she can make a clone of herself and turn that whole clone into a sword, it's much more potent. This goes even farther, because you have to keep in mind that this fruit, scales. She is able to do just such a variety with the Hana Hana no Mi, and I'm taking all of those skills into account. She could hypothetically set up an arm at a high place with, an extra eye near it, or even another arm with an eye on it, because we've seen her do that before, and then she could take the first arm and turn it into a rifle, giving her a high point of view. She could make mini arms, like we've seen her do to make her wings, turn them into knives, and, free herself if she or others are, tied up. The variety of what she can do with this. And then there's the absolute insane thing she can do, where she makes giant limbs. I really shouldn't have to state why just the ability to make a giant cannon the size of one of her giant arms would be devastating. 'Cause it would be. It doesn't even have to be, even scaling that further. She makes a giant arm, she could turn it into a missile, because we know Baby 5 has done that, and then she could stick an eye on the missile and constantly guide it where she wanted it to go. That is just a level of broken that's hard to explain. And yes, this probably would still be somewhat, hard to affect, like God tier enemies, like Kaido, for instance. But it still probably would affect him. I mean, if you throw enough ammunition at somebody, it eventually probably will get through. That having been said, it easily allows her to clean up with anybody, second tier, third tier on a crew, and definitely lower. If nothing else, she becomes great at crowd control with this, which she kind of already was. So let me know, do you think this was a great fruit for her, or would you have picked a different second devil fruit for her?